Hi guys, today I'm going to give you a tour of my tomatoes. And the first plant we're going to look at is Dada Sunset. This is my first time growing this variety. So far there's only one tomato on the plant. These tomatoes are supposed to be small to medium, and they are an orange tomato variety. Next down the line is Sungold. This is one of my favorite cherry tomatoes, and it's the only hybrid tomato that I'm growing this year. These are super sweet, and I've been harvesting a couple of these here and there already this season. Usually I don't harvest any tomatoes at all until at least mid-July. I think the reason that these are producing so early is because I left this plant in a cup for too long when it was a seedling, and as the roots filled up in the cup, the plant started putting out flowers earlier than it usually does. So when I got it put in the ground, there was already flowers growing on it, and I had some early fruit set. For me, the one downside of Sungold is that it almost always is the first plant in my garden to get septoria leaf spot. I've grown it a bunch of times, and that is how it always seems to play out. So this plant is half naked because I gave it a good pruning. I removed all of the diseased foliage, and then I sprayed it with some fungicide. Next is Kentucky Beefsteak. If you guys remember, this plant was completely topped off by my chickens, and it has made a big comeback. There's no tomatoes growing on it, but it'll happen soon enough. I love this tomato. It's a huge orange meaty beefsteak. This one is Allegheny Sunset, and this is my first time growing this variety. It's supposed to be a nice bicolor red and orange streaked tomato. The next one is supposed to be Rose Quartz Multiflora, but I am not entirely sure that's what's growing here. I think this is something else. Rose Quartz Multiflora is a cherry tomato, and it's supposed to produce huge clusters of flowers. That is not what's happening here. These are definitely larger than a cherry tomato, although they are small tomatoes. So it is what it is. This year I have had a lot of tomato hornworm damage, and this plant has been hit pretty hard, although all of my plants have been hit with tomato hornworms. I've probably picked about 40 of these things off my plants already. The next plant is German red strawberry. There are no tomatoes on this plant yet, but it happens to be one of my favorite varieties. It produces both medium and large red heart-shaped tomatoes. The foliage on this one, and a lot of other heart-shaped tomatoes as well, is kind of wispy and wimpy looking, but don't let that fool you. Usually this is a very good producer in my garden. Next we have Northern Lights. This is one that I have grown several times, and I always keep coming back to it. First of all, I love the name. I'm totally sucked in by the name Northern Lights. I live in southern Ohio, and we usually don't get to see the Northern Lights here, but one time I was lucky enough to see them, and it was just amazing and beautiful. I am very easily sucked in by variety names that make me feel any kind of nostalgia. This is a really good tomato though. It's a medium red and orange bicolor beefsteak. In my garden, it's usually one of the first beefsteaks to ripen up, and it has a pretty good flavor. And the next variety is African Queen. I've never grown this one before, but it's supposed to produce really large pink beefsteak tomatoes, and it's a potato leaf plant. I love potato leaf varieties. They always have lots of lush foliage. Look at the size of some of these leaves. This one is humongous. And here is another hornworm. You got to get rid of these little guys or they will eat your plants up. Right next to African Queen, I have another potato leaf variety, and this one is yellow Brandywine. I grew this one last year, and I think it may be the best tomato I've ever eaten. It wasn't productive for me, but the flavor of this tomato makes it worth growing. The next plant is Copia. This is supposed to be a really pretty one, and I like my food pretty. I got seeds for this one from Brian from Never Enough Dirts. Again, no tomatoes on this one yet, but we'll get there. Next we have KBX. KBX is supposed to be the potato leaf version of Kellogg's Breakfast. I grew Kellogg's Breakfast a couple of years ago, and I was not impressed with the plant's performance. I'm not sure what was going on, but all of my tomatoes were mush on the inside. The plant had lots of other issues. I'm not going to get into all that right now, but I'm hoping that this one does better. Next is Black Mountain Pink. This one is new to me. The fruits are supposed to be able to reach up to 3 pounds. That is humongous. I would love to get a tomato that big. Next, I have Dr. Weiss Is Yellow. For me, this is a very reliable and good tomato. Again, it's one that I come back to when I don't grow it for a year or two. Although this one is called Dr. Weiss Is Yellow, this is an orange tomato. They're usually in the 1 pound range, and where I live, they are pretty productive. And the last tomato plant of the day is Mariana's Peace. This one is new to me. Everything I've read online on various websites gives really good reviews for this variety. If I'm remembering correctly, I think it's supposed to be a red or pink beefsteak tomato that's very large, and a lot of people said it was productive. I'm looking forward to trying it. And that's pretty much it for this video. I had a few other varieties growing earlier in the year, but unfortunately I never have enough room for every seedling that I start. And sadly, I don't have any of the purple or black tomato varieties this year. I did plant Cherokee Purple in the ground, but unfortunately I broke the entire top of the plants off when I was trying to stake it up. I could have let it regrow like I did with the Kentucky Beefsteak tomato, but it was a little bit later in the season when it happened, so I just decided to go ahead and pull it. Anyhow, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.